Hello, and welcome back to Things Are Going Great For Me, a podcast about the arts and the entertainment business. My name is J. Claude Deering. I'm an actor and a comedian. If you're new here, welcome. Pull up a chair and get comfortable, because we want you all to enjoy yourselves. Have yourself a bagel, or even a bialy if you're feeling precious. On each episode of this series, you'll hear from huge movie stars, big TV stars, and even some bright, shining Broadway stars, as well as second guest interviews with exciting up-and-coming comics and actors and established producers, authors, and writers. We banked all the episodes, which also makes this series a time capsule of events that occurred throughout an historic summer. You can follow me, your host, at J. Claude Deering on both Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow our show handles on Twitter and Instagram at Things Are Going Great For Me. There you'll find our link tree that has links for our email list and Patreon. We've got some special items up on our Patreon right now. We've uploaded a few additional minutes from my interview with movie star Chris Pine from back in April of this year. Pine reflected on the pause the movie industry was about to take with the U.S. starting to shut down businesses and life as we knew it. He also talks about shooting a pandemic movie early in his career called Carriers. And for all you Brooklyn Nine-Nine fans, we've also uploaded 20 additional minutes of my interview from last week with Melissa Fumero. We talk about some of our memories from college, our favorite acting teachers. Melissa also talks about giving birth to her second son right at the beginning of a global pandemic. You can check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/thingsaregoinggreatforme. Here comes the rate and subscribe part. If you like any of what you hear today, please do us a big kindness. Subscribe to the show, leave us a nice comment, tell your aunt about us, give us those 5 stars wherever you're getting your podcast from today. Hey, Apple Podcast peeps. We see you, Spotify folks. Hey now, Stitcher fam. What's up, you freaky pocket casts cats? Hey, Breaker brethren and sistren. Salutations, radio public people. Hello, you overcast outroverts. Welcome to the party, Google Podcasters. We love you all equally, and we hope you love what you hear, and we want to keep bringing you new episodes of this show. And by the way, we're thrilled to be sponsored for this limited series by Icelandic Glacial, the purest tasting water on Earth, sourced from the legendary Ölfus Spring in Iceland, naturally filtered through ancient lava rock, and certified carbon neutral for both product and operation. You are what you drink. Be a force of nature. Icelandic Glacial, natural spring water, sourced from Iceland. Available on Amazon, IcelandicGlacial.com, and a retailer near you. Oh boy, I am excited about this episode. Today's first guest is Christine Woods. Christine played Jessica on HBO's Emmy-nominated Hello Ladies, starring Stephen Merchant. She also played Lucretia Calder on USA's Briar Patch. She talks about her audition process for Hello Ladies, beginning with reading for one of the best casting directors in the business, Allison Jones. We talk about the nerve-wracking process of booking a TV pilot. She's booked a whopping 13 pilots in her busy career. She talks honestly about the pressures she's encountered while navigating the business, including her experiences being an actor with a film at Sundance. We also talk about going to school for musical theater and our plans to start a Hollywood intramural choir. It's a great and candid chat. I'll be speaking with her in a few minutes. And a little bit later, you'll also get my conversation with Royce Johnson. Royce is a comedian and actor. He currently plays on a house team at the beloved upstart punk rock comedy school, the Pack Theater, here in Los Angeles. He talks about the differences between some of the notable LA comedy schools. He also talks about taking part in Studio U, a long-form focus group run by notorious political consultant Frank Luntz that was instrumental in the development of Hulu. Royce is one of the sharpest culture critics I know. Stick around, you're not going to want to miss it. Joining me again today is my producer and co-host, Winston Carter.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. So this is one of my favorite episodes. Both of our guests, very few fucks to give. They're honest and fearless in their interviews, talking about the realities of navigating the business from two distinct backgrounds.
Yeah.
Christine talked a little bit about the glamorousness or lack thereof in showbiz.
Yeah.
What's your take on? Have we talked about this yet? What is your take on the glamorousness of show business?
It is obviously glamorous, but it's also like exhausting, and it's like a constant grind. That's really what I liked about this interview. Was like, yeah, you can be on a million shows and people know who you are, and it's still a grind.
So for someone like Christine, she's booked 13 pilots. Once you've booked 13 pilots, your quote on a pilot when you book it can get up into the sort of, let's just say, 6 figures. And yeah,
Okay.
that's enough money to cover your year. You still have to pay your 30% tax. You have to pay your 10% manager fee, 10% agent fee. If you have a publicist, you're paying them thousands of
Gross.
dollars a month.
Ugh.
So, you're looking at maybe walking with about 40% of that. But if you booked your first pilot or your second or third or even fourth, likely that would not cover everything for the year living in an expensive city like Los Angeles.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's tough. It doesn't really get better until you, like we've said, like you are really in demand. But someone like Christine, like she's at a point in her career where, I am very hopeful. Not hopeful. I'm very, I aspire to be where she is. And, I'm sure she would say, as she does talk candidly here, that even that is not quite where, a person might need to be, particularly a person who might have a family. One of the things that I was very thrilled to be asked to go on a friend of mine's podcast, Alicia Oxshey, who has a wonderful podcast called That One Audition. Folks, go check it out. It was great. It was very kind of Alicia to have me on. I did one of her Wednesday Wisdom episodes, and we spent the time talking about happiness in this career. And, for me, this was a question that I had asked Chris Pine too. Like, is anyone happy in this business? And he basically said, like, the human condition is sort of what it is. It's always going to be life on life's terms. You can be at any stage of this career success wise, and you can still be depressed.
And it doesn't mean that what they're saying is not true, but it's like your frame of reference for what are hard things has changed. Because like, someone at like a big actor level might be like, well, I've never gotten nominated for an Oscar. Like someone like Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Like, and then they're just they're making the problems the only things they don't have. Like for years, he notoriously wanted to win an Oscar. Why? Because he'd done everything else. Like there's nothing else.
Yeah.
So I kind of, while I also agree, like the grind never ends, obviously.
Yeah.
I do genuinely believe I'm a firm proponent of like there's ways that this industry could change to make the grind less for people who are actually on the real part of the grind. For me that would be
without
like
question.
Like,
I agree.
Like I personally believe if you're testing for a sitcom, if you're doing all that, that's work. I honestly think that all major productions should pay you to audition. It should be like $50. It shouldn't be something insane.
I so agree that because you know what? I agree with that because it's, people will say, well, you have to interview for jobs in the world. But you could even argue that we've become more of a gig economy across all industries. Okay. There are a lot of temporary part-time workers out there. Okay. That's not a good thing. But but I agree because actors we have to apply for a job maybe 5 to 10 times a week. And I agree with you, man. Our time is money. I think that's a good idea, dude.
I really do believe, like, there's this whole thing. So I work, I do entertainment stuff, but I've also worked in, like, the .com space some. And there's a whole thing now where they're, like, it became very popular for a while. People would give you, like, a packet of stuff to do, right?
Right,
say,
that's
like,
what I've done.
This is all your sample.
Yeah,
that's
what I've done
now finally...
too.
Yeah, and people are figuring out, like, that's not okay because you're essentially asking them to do a bunch of work for you.
Yeah.
For free. And even if you're never going to use it, you're still asking them like, well, let me show you how you would make this. I had to make like an editorial calendar for one, and I was like, no, I'll do a week of it. I'm not doing month of it.
You said no.
Yeah, I responded like, hey,
man.
Here's the deal. Here's a week. Here's what I would do in a sample week, but I'm not doing like because what they sent me was no joke, 16 hours of work probably. It was like
that's what
so
I've done
much.
in the past for those writing jobs too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Well, this was like for like, it was for an editorial, like kind of manager position for, I'll say, fuck it, Snapchat. And I was just like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, here's my samples. Here's my other work. Here's my references.
Yeah.
You guys can hire me or not hire me based on that, but I'm not going to do all this. This is insane.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, that's literally what every actor is being. And some of them might, like if you're like me, when I would go to commercial auditions, I would be like, I'll figure the sides out when I get there. I don't care. Like, I know I'm good in this fast moment, but some people are like hiring vocal coaches and running it over and doing all these things that they're paying out
and
of,
everyone's
but also
paying,
they're being asked. Yeah,
we're all paying.
They're doing the work.
We're all paying these self-tape fees now too for self-tape studios. It's just getting more and more expensive every year.
Yeah.
I agree with you, man. I think there is. I mean, I will say this: like when they hire someone to act in something, typically they have written something and they have an idea of what it's supposed to be, but it's still an idea on paper. And what happens is the right person walks in the room and they go, "Oh, this is our person. This person is a TV star or what have you." And they go, "And this is who the character always was. This is who it was." And that work that people do when they come in the room and give their interpretation, that ends up being a part of, final ideas for who the character is. So they're getting every single possible take on who this character could be.
Yep.
And there is no copyright on people's work when they come in as an actor and give their expression of who that character could be, but that could end up later in the pages of a produced show.
100%. Well, I think it's worse in commercials where people go in and they ask you to
improvise.
They'll ask you to improvise, and then you'll see the commercial and you'll be like, "I said that line," and maybe a bunch of people said that line.
Has that actually happened to you?
It has not happened to me. It has happened to other people.
Yeah. I did want to ask you one thing before we throw to the interviews. Royce talks about the difference between some of the LA comedy schools, specifically the UCB theater and the PAC theater, and you are in a unique position to comment on that as you have been on teams at both schools. So what are the differences that you've experienced between the two schools?
So I'm on a team at the PAC, but I got kind of so I haven't gone through their improv program per se. Not per se, I just haven't. But I am familiar with their improv. I have lots of friends who perform there. The differences are very much. I mean, UCB is and then I've been on a mess hall team at UCB, and have gone through their entire program. It's just UCB basically figured out, in my mind, how to make they've put down how to do improv. So really, more importantly, how to be funny and think about comedy into a set of rules and guidelines that anyone can apply to anything.
Right.
So once they've essentially labeled it game and come up with like, these are things like, we know we can teach you these aspects, and these aspects will make you funnier, and we'll give you a framework to think about comedy. The PAC has elements of that, and I know they do teach like a lot of behavior stuff and a lot of status play, but I don't think that they're, based on my experience, nearly as regimented and as organized in that. And I think while the PAC is probably somewhere where if you're a naturally funny player, you've been doing improv for a while, you can go, and I think there's great classes there, don't get me wrong, but that you're going to go there and maybe get better. But I think if you don't really have any experience, and in LA's case, if you're, someone who just got here and wants to, audition for commercials and wants to understand fundamentally, like, I'm not a very funny person, can you give me some rules to make me funny? That's what UCB really excels at, in my opinion.
Got it.
And the school, but I will argue, I think the school vibe of the PAC is closer. I've been in LA for 10 years, so I've been doing stuff at UCB since like 2011, 2012. I think maybe 2011 is probably when I took my first class.
Yeah.
The vibe at the PAC is closer to what the vibe at UCB was when I first started than UCB is now.
Yeah.
UCB now feels like a fucking school. Like, it's very this big monolith, and that's the nature of things. Like, the PAC is the young upstart who are like scrappy and fighting and very punk rock, and UCB they talk about being punk rock. They are so far from it now.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. How do you feel about, I think we've done a pretty good job with our first season here so far. What do you think? Do you think at this point we should be doing a second season?
I hope so. I'm excited about it because I've honestly thought more and more about, like, this first season is very much like it's Claude's acquaintances, and I'm very interested to open this up into people that you don't necessarily have a history with,
right?
To see, because you've been such a studious, you've prepped for your interviews so much more than I would have, and genuinely asked insightful, good questions that I'm like, oh shit, I know people who are doing pretty well who I'd like to genuinely hear them have this conversation.
All right, we'll have to see. Well, folks, once again, you've been very patient with us. Without further ado, here now is the hugely talented and hilarious and soulful Christine Woods.
I mean, I think that I was always really attracted to movies, of course, and television, but for me it was music, because I got my start in kind of performing as a singer. And so as a youngster, I studied classically with a teacher, and so I did all these weird, nerdy music competitions, and was eventually how I was able to pay for college was that I got a singing scholarship.
Oh,
and my initial interest was studying vocal jazz.
Oh.
In like a music department. And, you know, I had done the musicals when I was in high school, and I was always very rounded. I played varsity sports. I, you know, did a lot of different things. But when I got to college was really the moment I thought, okay, I don't know if I want to be like a singer. I don't know if, you know, I'm not a musician per se. So what about this like acting thing? Like maybe this is something I would want to incorporate. So then, you know, I always loved musicals, of course, growing up, and I'm a tap dancer, and I've always, you know, just done a lot of different things. So I decided to do musical theater, and I went to a school that had a BFA program. I went to the University of Arizona, and it was the one school I auditioned for. It was the only place I applied, because it never occurred to me to like go to New York.
Huh. Why not?
I think I was afraid to be that far away from home. I don't think I was mature enough for college when I went. I think I needed like a year.
Huh.
I think I went a little too soon.
That's so interesting. I had to do, so I did all of that as well. I was a singer. I mean, I did a lot of, I mean, I was acting since I was 11. I started working a little professionally. When I was out here for those like junior high years, I booked like an Encyclopedia Britannica commercial, which is like, you just take a look at my photo again and you're like, perfect. And then I booked the show Evita, which to be a, you know, in the like a child in that. But
so where was that? That was in New York, or that was
in Santa Barbara. That was at the Santa Barbara Civic Light Opera. That was my first job. I was 11. I had a music teacher at school who Terry Radilla, who was like, you should go audition for this. And I remember I got up and it was like a 1,000-seat house, and I sang Be Our Guest. And the director, Mark Lipschitz, was like in the middle of the seat, the theater far away, and was like, can you sing like that for 3 months? And I was like, yeah. I don't know. Well, hopefully. I think I was like, I think so. And anyway, that was my first job. But then I did all that classical singing too. Like I did so you were doing arias and that sort of stuff. Is that right? What's vocal jazz? Were you scatting?
I mean, essentially vocal jazz is like a category for all of those singing competitions.
Okay.
And so did you go to like nerd singer summer camps and stuff?
You know,
that's the kind of shit that I did.
I did some of the theater ones. By that point, I was at an American school in the UK, so we would do things like that. But I was doing, like, I did honor jazz band. I played piano as well, so I did honor jazz band, and I did. We would do international honor choir, things like that. So choir, like I miss choir a lot. I would love to get, and I haven't seen.
Me too.
I have not seen a lot. I'd like to get like an LA choir going. That, you know, I mean, I know there's the gay men's chorus, I think.
And there's also, I think there's a Silver Lake choir.
Oh, okay.
And then the LA women's choir. I don't know if the Silver Lake choir is still a thing, but
I miss it.
I mean, I fantasize about, because I would do like Chapman School of Music, for like a couple of weeks, we would go in the summer and just do these weird, basically just learning how to perform opera and musical theater. And I was just like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's just like, I don't think people understand that like classical music, vocal performance is like, it's basically like having a kid who like wants to be like a violinist in the symphony. Like the amount of work that you have to do. And when you're a kid and you're just like, oh God, this is so exhausting, I want to go play sports. It's like, it became kind of a chore to me, you know? And so I think that's why I wanted to like,
well, you're singing
figure out the acting thing.
You're singing in German and Italian or whatever. And you're like, what am I?
And it's not cool. It's not that not your friends aren't like, sing the aria for us. You know, you're like,
I was lucky in the sense that I didn't really care about what cool was. Like somehow being completely hopelessly a nerd kind of worked for me in a weird. I think people were like, oh, like it's too easy to be mean to a guy like that. So
they're like, well, he's just doing his thing. Just leave him alone. He's not hurting anybody.
But then I did musical theater in college as well. So what were that's how I sang my way into college. And then I was talking to Brandon about this because we went to the same school. I transferred into Stella Adler and I did the second 2 years I did over there. But so what were the musicals you did in college? Do you remember which shows?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember I played Ado Annie. We did Oklahoma.
Oh, interesting.
And we did like classical things. It was also like, it was a classical school. So Chekhov, Shakespeare, Moliere, all that stuff. And I played Ophelia in Hamlet. That was a big thing I did my junior year.
Very cool.
And we did in the first couple of years, we did Guys and Dolls.
Fun. I just rewatched that film.
And I was like a dancer.
The film is really good. I just watched that during this quarantine a few weeks ago, the Guys and Dolls movie with Sinatra.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It's really good. Guys and Dolls
great in that.
Were you Adelaide or were you Sarah?
I wasn't. I was Adelaide's understudy. And she was so good, the actress who played Adelaide. But I was like a dancer, you know? I was like a Kit Kat Club. Is that?
Yeah, Kit Kat Club. I think that's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I did that. And then we did a lot of freshman year. We did a lot of like reviews. We did a lot of kind of vocal jazz stuff, which is why I think I got accepted into the program. Because like essentially my pieces for auditioning to the school were like for a music school.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to go into the musical theater school, they were like, sure, yeah, okay, you can figure this out. Because I had so many like all the music people were like, yes, allow her to go be in your program.
Yeah.
We'll figure the rest out. But a musical theater school is really, it'll really beat you down.
I do remember a student passing out in ballet class once, and the teacher, under her breath, as she passed me and some other people, was like, another one bites the dust. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, is this all these ex-Studio 54 dancers who were our teachers, I mean, they must have gone through it. I mean, I can't even imagine what it was like to be a dancer in the 70s, a woman and a dancer in the 70s in New York City. My God.
No, I can't. I just feel like a lot of people on like amphetamines. I mean, we all watched the Fosse show.
Yeah.
On FX,
Yeah.
And I think that a brutal. So I'm glad I was never like just a dancer. That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah. And even singing, I mean.
It's when I came to LA, I was like, no musicals.
Yeah.
No music. Nothing. And I just totally, I ran from it.
Yeah, I did kind of the same. So I was as big a fan of movies as I was of theater at that point. And yeah, I think the other thing with musical theater, and I miss it now, I want to do it now. Now I'm like ready to do it.
Well, we're gonna start a choir, so like more
yes.
on the choir thing later. But like, yes. I'm 100% in.
Intramural choir.
100%.
Fuck yeah. All right.
And my fiance is a composer, an orchestral composer.
Oh, yeah.
For film and television. So he can arrange anything for us.
Oh, my God. That's what you need. I love this. Okay. We're going to make this happen. It's the thing that was tough, I think, was that, like, you can't drink. You can't smoke a cigarette. You can't have coffee. You have to get good sleep I mean, that's not a great... For when you're in your 20s, it's amazing the people who can do that. Yeah. You got to wear that.
I was not very good. Like, in college, I smoked cigarettes. Yeah. Like, I was just kind of like, whatever, I'm a jazz singer. Like, I could sound however I want. But, like, you know, as an adult, I look back and I think, like, wow, you weren't really seeing what you could do at all. So now, as an adult, it's like I feel very conscientious, and how can I craft this instrument?
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think it's too late. You know what I mean? Like, I don't look back at that time and think like, wow, I just wish I would have da-da-da. But I do feel now that I'm just able to digest information in a much quicker way. Because I think when you're a young person that's not necessarily prepared to go be part of like a professional program, I mean, I couldn't hear that I was, you know, like, a criticism was hard. I didn't understand what people were saying. And then when they would be like, oh, you're so great, I would immediately feel embarrassed. And I didn't want, you know, I think learning how to craft yourself as a storyteller, I feel like I'm just now figuring out like what I'm actually supposed to be doing as it relates to like a bigger story, like a bigger arc, or like what my place is in a script or in, you know, a season of something. I had no idea when I was that young in like an acting program.
Yeah, there's some advice that you get, I think, from those great. Some of the teachers are really, really great, you know, and I think there's some advice that you get from them that is stuff that doesn't even apply to 20-year-olds or 18-year-olds. Right. Like, it's not, like, I had a teacher once who said, make sure your agent knows what you can do. That didn't mean anything to me until, like, now.
Right.
Now I'm like, oh, okay. But, like... Yeah, I think some of those things kind of will go over your head. And then there is this like breaking down thing that they do with acting students, which if you, like you were saying about criticism, like I was all about it. And I think that's part of it because I was somewhat like kind of a comfortable being a goofy me and knew that, I don't know why, I was just kind of, it was okay to light a fire under me. But I saw teachers say wild shit to people. Like, I remember a teacher saying at the end of a semester to a student that their work the entire semester was crap. And it just, at the end, and just the blood that drained out of this kid's face, and I just thought, like, that's not fair. That's your job, man. If this guy sucks at the end of the semester...
It's like, you're telling me now that like, my work is crap?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough time. I remember just, like, constantly kind of like acting out some will injury, like being told that I needed to fit into a mold as like a musical theater girl.
Oh God.
And being terrifying. Like, well, I'm not that. Yeah. And then being like, well, but you have to pick one of these 4 ways to be a woman.
Right.
If you want to make it in this town.
Ingenue.
And I remember thinking like, no. The answer is no. And now I look back and I think, oh, that was like, you're learning the history of this thing, and you're learning where you fit in its broader kind of picture.
Yeah.
But back then, I think I just heard like, conform.
Yeah, you're absolutely, and I love musical theater. It's this art form that people shit on all the time. They love to shit on it. That being said, though, there is a lot. I mean, the older stuff, 1970s and earlier, I mean, it's steeped in misogyny. It's steeped in racism. The newer, I mean, thank God for folks like Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is able to, do for musical theater. I think it's like what they said about Quentin Tarantino. He sort of absorbed everything, and then he sort of reserved us the American hamburger was a thing that they said about him. I feel like Lin-Manuel is sort of in that category of, thank God we have him in the musical theater world, I guess.
Honestly, I mean, it's just, yeah, he's just
and
Janine
Tesori
and other folks. Yeah,
you know, he's just doing something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a classical program, like we did old musicals, and they're all really problematic.
Well, Oklahoma was American propaganda during World War II. I don't think a lot of people.
And then we did Carousel,
which is
like so intense.
Did that too.
It's like, have you ever been hit in the face, but it really felt like a kiss? Basically, is the narrative.
It's about an abuser.
Movie. Yeah.
I know, it's horrifying.
Oh.
Now, was Flash Forward, this pilot, was this the first pilot that went to series for you? Had you booked a lot of pilots up until that point?
Flash Forward was, let me see, it was the first pilot I had done that got picked up.
Okay.
Prior to that, gosh, I don't really remember, but I think all in all, I've done like 13 pilots.
That's incredible.
3 of which have gone to series.
Wow.
So.
God, that's so emotional.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I remember hearing a story about somebody who booked the pilot, went to the table read, got fired after the table read.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that. And I've definitely been the person that has gotten that job. And I was also fired off of my first pilot. And you know what's so sad about it? It was a Lifetime pilot. And I was like, I'm an actor now. I'm for reals. And I like didn't have to work 4 restaurant jobs, like I just, everything opened up for me. And after we shot the pilot, it was terrifying. I didn't really know what I was doing. Before it was like time for the show to get picked up, they fired me. And the show like didn't get picked up. Like it wasn't even close to getting picked up. And I was like, why did you have to go through that? Like, why did you have to just let it die on its own?
Yeah.
But I'm glad it happened very early on. It was a rite of passage. And I think I had an amazing manager who I was working with at that time. And he was like, you know who else got fired from our first pilot? Jennifer Aniston. And he started listing off all these people. And I was like, oh, it's like sports. Okay. I get
Oh, yeah.
it.
Totally. I think that we internalize it as people taking away our talent, which is so easy for people to do. It's easy for somebody to say one thing and you're like, oh, I'm horrible at this. Like I was never
and that's not like how it was in theater school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose I'm grateful for that experience, but I also think that Hollywood, it's hard to have that experience in front of like 18 people that you know very well. But then when you come to Hollywood and it's like, it just feels like such a huge world that it's like it's almost impossible. So you just try, it's like, there's not very much risk because it would be insane for you to succeed here. So you just literally go for it without even thinking about it.
Right. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think in my best moments, you just put it out and do your best work and try to let it go, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You went on to do a comedy called Perfect Couples. Was it fun working with that group of folks?
Yes, I love that show. That was one of those shows that it was around, like I think it was when like there was a bunch of shows like about couples like that, like kind of these like 3 couples in this situation, 4 couples, like generational couples, like it was kind of a thing. So we didn't last longer than 1 season, but it feels like it was much richer than just 1 season of television. Like I remember episodes so specifically, and that was in like 2009.
Yeah. I
remember like things that happened in the episodes so clearly, much clearer than a lot of other things I've ever done. Everyone in that cast was so special and so good. And Kyle Bornheimer played my husband.
Yeah.
Do you know Kyle?
Not personally. I don't know. I don't think I know any of those folks personally, no.
Yeah, Kyle is absolutely brilliant.
He
He's
seems
one of
like
those actors that
nice guy.
you just keep waiting for him to like get his thing.
Mm.
But I learned so much about physical comedy from him, just watching him do it. Like he's a brilliant clown. I think the clown was something that he was really interested in and studied, and I learned a lot from those cast members. And I was a little bit younger than most of them, so I would always play kind of the other side of 25.
Okay.
Even when I was 20.
Oh, interesting. Oh, okay.
Or the other side of 35. I mean, I was, I don't know, I think I was, I don't know, not much younger than everybody else, but I felt like people were very seasoned around me, certainly in comedy.
I mean, when you see actors do things where they completely let go of their ego or id or super, whichever one it is, to just allow themselves to be seen, it's just this thing that I think we get very vulnerable about, because we don't know when we're being taken advantage of and when we're in good. I mean, it all has to do with, I think, being able to trust the people that we're working with, to like go there and be ugly in a certain way, or to be absolute or silly, or you don't want to be, for me, I think I was always too worried about being goofy until I realized maybe it was like my superpower if I could just allow it to be, allow people to see me. But I think in the beginning of when I was trying, I thought, oh, well, everybody has to be like Matt Dillon, brooding, that's just not a great color on me. But it took me a few years to be like, oh, that's not my lane.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody can pull off like yellow, it's kind of a specific thing.
And those first headshots were always so confusing, because it was all about like what are we supposed to be giving, and you just want it to be neutral. That's what I remember, a blank canvas upon which the director will, or writer will be like, oh, I see him as it doesn't help at all.
Yeah, it's weird. And I'm coming into this place where I've been very lucky to play like a lot of kind of weird kind of character stuff lately, and it's so freeing and so wonderful. And something I just did recently was probably the most vulnerable I've ever felt on camera, like in a show. And I remember I gained a bunch of weight, and I was basically the arc of the character was to like deteriorate essentially, and like mentally rot over the season of the show. And
are you saying deteriorate?
Just being allowed to do that.
Do you mean
just like
mentally,
mentally, emotionally? Okay. Like her life is falling apart.
Okay.
And it was so freeing to just not think about what she looks like, other than she's not thinking about what she looks like. And as a woman in Hollywood, like, that's not always something you're invited to participate in, and just being able to like literally not fit into your clothes and literally just not. I mean, and then that might sound a little kind of surfacey and trite, but like for a woman who's been told that her value and the way she'll be able to pay her bills is by like looking a specific and certain way. I feel very lucky that as I get older, I'm able to kind of expand beyond those things and not still have to hang on to them as tight as I can,
Yeah. Hopefully we are moving in a more positive, body positive direction as a business. Yes. Did you experience a lot of that when you were meeting early on with agents and things? Were you getting those horrible statements like you need to lose X amount of weight? Did that ever happen?
No, that definitely never happened. But I did notice I noticed a kind of charge from audition rooms and people and producers, creatives, when I was like starving myself. Like they would be like much more excited about me for the role.
Yeah.
And it could have maybe that was just something that was like happening in my head, But I definitely feel like I've encountered a lot of like, she's just so pretty. Why did she not do it?
Why did she not
like you're
lose
just like
the...
you like why didn't she like
right.
do it? It's like she's almost there. Like, why is she throwing it in our faces? Like that was a quote I've had before of like,
oh my God,
it was disrespectful.
Oh, that it was this kind of
like a tight, that she looked frumpy and homeless. Like, she's got the goods. Tell her to bring them.
Jesus.
This
Christ.
kind of like, we see you rejecting it. It's like, no, I just put on a shirt. I wasn't even thinking about it. Like, what do you mean rejecting it? And having to have that conversation with male reps and trying to explain it, and then having some men totally get it and some women not fucking get it at all. That it's definitely, I mean, look, as a white woman, I have so much privilege, specifically as it relates to this industry as an actor, that like it was novel for me to hear those things, and I would tell people and they'd go, what? But I think for women of color, black actresses, like it must be like that all the fucking time. And it must just always feel just so confusing and unfair and weird.
Or that these are the boxes that we are available for you to play. You have to hit one of these, right. Even more restrictive.
Yeah, it's like, be yourself, but like, not really.
It's very hard, I think, to find any project where people, it's weird because it's like there are jobs where you are, the role feels like a glove, and not in a physical sense, and those feelings of being able to bring your authentic experience to those roles can be very cathartic. And then there are all sorts of other, then it's easy for the business to confuse you with that thing of like, well, but no, it's just acting. You're supposed to act, it's not supposed to be, Yeah. All right. So I wanted to ask you about, okay. So getting back to Hello Ladies, I read that Deadline had reported that it was a lengthy casting process. Can you tell us or me a little bit about the process of booking that show? Did you audition was it for Allison Jones?
Yeah.
She's the best.
She's the best. The best. She always makes me feel, and other actors, I'm sure, some people I've talked about have corroborated this, like, that you're just the only one there for the day, and that there's just so much respect for your time and what you do and what, she's classy lady. She's really good at it.
Yeah.
And I remember I auditioned, I think Steven was in the room the first time I went in.
Steven Murphy.
And I remember I signed in, and there was just all these incredible actresses around me, like all different age ranges. And I was like, ugh. Oh, what am I doing here? Okay, whatever. And I remember doing it and feeling like it went well, and then reading with Steven. And then I remember I left and I was like, oh, I think that went pretty well. And then we did so many come back in producer sessions, come back in and read. Like, we did so many rounds, and a lot of it we would improv. We would just, like, I think it was just to get a sense of, like, is this a chemistry that's going to get us through an entire, series arc of television? And I think they were just looking for something really specific. I think they were really looking for, like, somebody that wasn't totally recognizable, I think, in comedy or drama.
You must have been.
But I remember doing the test.
Yeah.
And just feeling like, man, that was really I'm glad that's over, you know.
What was the test? What is a test like for a single cam? I've done a test for a multicam. What's a single cam test like?
It's kind of exactly the same,
Okay.
except usually there's less people in the room.
Yeah.
By a bit, just a bit. This was at the HBO offices when they were in Santa Monica,
Yep.
and it's a screening room, like a big one.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking like, why this size of room, you guys? Like, there's an office somewhere that we could have done this, but I don't know. It was.
Yeah, because a
You
big
kind of
room, you'd
black
feel like it
out,
would.
you know?
A big room would like swallow up the quieter moments of a single cam.
Yeah.
And for I guess
Yeah.
if we're being too
It's
inside
weird.
for people, it's like the difference. A multicam is sitcom, and a single cam is what looks like a movie that is a TV show, which has been a thing now since Scrubs. I feel like Scrubs might have been like the first. I don't know, something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Now, you must have been
Yeah.
competing against a lot of
Yeah.
comedy, like all the UCB people, all the Groundlings people, I would imagine. And you beat them all. It's incredible.
I mean,
Not easy to do.
I don't know.
They've
I
got
don't even know. Like,
'cause
I
they got
never
a
really
lot.
felt like I belonged to that kind of like comedy community in
Yeah.
LA because I never did UCB. I never did Groundlings. I never did all of those things because when I first got out here, I was mostly working. I mean, I was doing a lot of drama. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't doing comedy. And so I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't really fall into that community. And now I'm in the community. I have so many friends that are, you know, come from those schools, and so many friends who are writers and, you
Yeah.
know, that kind of thing. But that was another, like, I'm a fraud moment when I, like,
Had you been in for Allison Jones previous to this, or was this the first time the both of you were meeting? Do you remember?
I'd met her early on.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I met her early on in my career. This was the first thing I think she cast me in, but I tested for a few things with her, I think.
Yeah.
And she definitely knew who I was, and we had like a rapport. But, you know, it's interesting, like, you're sitting in the audition room. I'm sure you can relate to this. You're sitting in the audition room around all these incredible people that you're like, oh my God, that person's so good. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that person is so funny. And every time you go to an Allison Jones thing, someone from the office is walking out.
Mm-hmm.
When you're walking in or when you're leaving, someone from the office is walking in, the TV
Yeah.
show The Office, and you're just like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
But then you realize, like, oh, I'm here. Like, I'm here because I'm here because I'm here. You know?
Yeah. My experience was reading for they wrote a New York Times article about it. It was for a Paul Feig show that was going to take place in space, which they did. And like 1,000 people were submitted, or something like 100 people got to read per role or something like that, and I was lucky enough to get to be one of these people. So this was my first time reading for her, and she got me immediately. She was like, "Where are you from?" And I said like Massachusetts, and she was like, "Oh, I know." She was something about like, "Oh, I know who you are." She was like, "You're like a young Adam McKay," and I was like, "Oh." I mean, great.
You're like, sure.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. She was so lovely, and she's from Massachusetts too. We had a little bit of a bond there, and then she was like, "I'm gonna bring you in for Veep." I think she said it in the room, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like that was the show, and I remember going back and being in that room you're talking about, and yeah, I'm not gonna say who was there, but those people were there, and a person came out of the room before I went in who was someone who you and we both love. I'm not gonna say who it is, because they were rattled. They were a little older, and they were. I mean, I say that they're like a generation above us. Actor,
Right.
They were a little rattled. They grabbed a handful of candy from the candy bowl, which I was like,
There's always good candy there.
I was like, that's a thing that you're doing that? I don't know. Put it in there, and then they were like, that did not go well. And I was like, I was like, they'd be so lucky to have you on the show. And they said, oh, thank you so much. And then they left, and then they mic'd me before going in the room. And I was like, what is going on? And there was like 9 people in there and Julia Louis-Dreyfus sitting there when I walked in. And I think I had a good reaction because I was such a fan of hers. I did not get the part though. I thought I had a pretty good audition, but like that room it's so many people in a tiny room, and it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and I feel like Allison does that. She'll like have the person in the room, and it's like, I think that she doesn't tell you.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
That's happened a couple of times, and I'm like, that's Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just like did shitty.
Yeah.
So who knows? But I feel like she gets it. You know, like she's seen us shitty. She's seen us great. She still brings us in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The final season of that show, Hello Ladies, came in the form of an HBO movie, which was nominated for 2 Emmys. What's the experience like when your show is nominated for Emmys? Do you go? Is that when you get the invites to all the fancy parties?
No, specifically no. This was they were nominated for writing, and we were nominated for something else. I think it was like comedy miniseries or something. But trying to think, because like occasionally I'll go to like the parties and the events that surround these things. Like I think I went to an HBO party, but yeah, it was definitely not. I watched it on TV.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it wasn't like a but also I think that has a lot to do with the fact that at that point our show was canceled. So we got kind of, it was like at the buzzer, you know what I mean? Like we got, because we didn't really know that our show, you know, after that first season, we were kind of waiting around thinking like, of course there's going to be another season. And I remember Steven calling me being like, I wish I knew more, but like, I don't know if we're going to come back another season. He was like, but we're definitely going to at least get to do like a special.
Okay.
Like we're going to be able to like finish the story at least. And so we were relieved of that. But I think that we just went out with a bang and just tried to make an amazing, you know, hour long. And then all of the Emmy nominations came, you know, way after. So I could have had something to do with it. I don't know.
Huh. Now, but you have been to these kinds of events and parties, premieres, red carpet events, and things like that. So, are you good at that? Do
you think I'm good? Do I seem like I'd be good at that?
I would imagine anyone would be better than me at it.
Seem like I'd be good at it. I mean, I think that it's not a unique experience to like be an actor and like hate that stuff. You know, like I'm not special for like not liking that part of it. Like I think it's, for me, it's much more unusual to meet a friend that's like, I love doing the red carpet, you know? And I do have friends like that, and they are amazing at it. And they just, they're just so great at that part of the business. I'm really not.
Yeah, I see people who thrive in that environment. They're talking with everybody. They're making possible new connections with folks, and do you think it's because? Do you think that you're shy, a little bit shy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think I don't like attention. I don't really want it on me. I do not like that feeling after you've been on stage and you have to walk out of the dressing room with like your bag. I do not like that feeling.
Do you, I don't know, I was going to ask you if you felt the entertainment business was glamorous, or do you think it feels cheaper than people on the outside think it is?
I mean, it does not feel glamorous at all to me. It feel like I wouldn't probably use that, but I think it's definitely, it's much harder than I think people understand.
Right.
Like, it's much more difficult to do press and to do pilot season, for example. There's nothing glamorous about, like, you know, having to change your shirt 6 times in your car and
Right. Yeah.
staying up all night and working on something and just blowing it.
Yeah.
There's really nothing glamorous about getting a job.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what the business is, right? Because you think of all the times you're working versus all the times you're trying to work, and it's just like 20% of the time you're doing it, but the other time is just you're just, you know, doing the really hard work.
Yeah, and the money.
I'm a bummer. See, I'm a bummer.
It's okay. I mean, I think that it's. Yeah, I think it's that the money is not, when you get that, when you realize that what you're getting paid for, that's when you're like, oh, this is like, I pulled one over on everyone. Like,
right.
This is the fact that I'm getting paid this amount of money to do what I did. Like, that's the greatest life. Like, this is the life for me. Like, that amount of money has also come down over the years, so you have to hustle more for those opportunities. It's just in that moment, I think, where you realize, I think that in large part it's because there are so many moving parts that we are not aware of and do not get taught anything about when we're being educated about being artists, that there, you know, I think it's like people are very quick to say, like, we don't want to hear any, but like, about any, you know, tears from, or anybody being upset about getting to work in this particular business. It's completely understandable. We certainly don't want to go back to waiting tables, because that's one of the shittiest jobs. It's hard.
Yeah.
Totally. And just that thing of like anticipation of need of a restaurant patron, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's like but it's more like when you see like what a trailer actually is, right? When you're like, oh, it smells like pee-pee in here. And it's like, that's the thing.
Oh, I scented pee-pee. I get it. So don't touch the water. Okay.
Because we're thinking back to the days of Clark Gable or whoever, Lucille Ball, and the whatever. We imagined that. But you know what? It probably was about the same. Except that they were living on the studio land, I guess, right? Weren't so many of those people? Yeah,
that's true. So, I mean, they were like trapped. That's why Palm Springs happened, right? They like couldn't go further than that when they were on contract. So, like, that's why Palm Springs became a thing.
Oh, is that right? To get out? Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, Palm Springs is such an interesting, weird history of, like, you know, MGM studio contract players needing to leave town but not being able to go that far.
Oh my God.
It's very weird.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, that would be a kind of a fun podcast to do, like the story of that.
The story of Palm Springs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you
also, I wish people, you made me think of something. I wish, the one thing about the glamour part of this business, I wish people would have explained to me, and it's changed it's changed a lot in the last, like, 10 years, right? 8 to 10 years. But I wish people would have explained to me that going to, like, a big film festival is like Sundance, or you're doing these, like, really, like, you know, when we're in college, it's like, I'm just going to be in a Sundance movie, and then I'm just going to be so cool, and it's just, it's going to be about the cool movies and the cool work, and then you realize, like, you usually are paying your own way, you're usually, you know, like, as a woman specifically, the cost to get your hair and makeup done, and to, like, get a dress, and to do all this stuff, like,
you're doing that
celebrities
out of pocket.
Get free dresses, and they get people and this whatever. But if you're like me, just to be really candid, I mean, you're dropping your, you know, $3,000 or however much money you are on, like, kind of buying into that, like.
On a movie,
red carpet ready stuff.
on a Sundance movie that you made how much money on?
Oh, probably like $1,000.
$1,000 total. Yeah. So you're spending about $3,000 to be
Yeah.
for that one day where you're putting on the cool sweater for the photo that hopefully is
Yeah.
going to end up on EW.com.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the movie itself paid you about $1,000, and there are no real residuals for something like that.
Correct.
Gets bought.
Yeah.
The early days of Netflix gets bought, thrown on Netflix as part of the when they're just buying intellectual property.
Yeah. And then
I was
it's like,
gonna
you know,
ask you.
before Netflix, you could make money on a back end indie movie.
Right.
But now it's like that doesn't exist.
Now, do you ever go? Because I have not been to Sundance yet, and I wonder. So, like, do you ever get to go? Have you been skiing? Because you've been a few times. Do you go skiing? Does anybody actually like
No.
go?
Some people do. I think that if like, here's the thing. I've learned that you don't want to stay very long, but if you do stay long, you probably want to ski. You know, but like last time I went last year, and I got like altitude sickness, which is what I thought was altitude sickness. I was so sick, and then I went to a screening in like another city, so you have to like drive an hour to go to a screening in another city. And the director, Deborah Eisenstadt, one of my great friends, she was like, "Man, I feel really sick too." And then cut to her like puking her brains out, and me puking my brains out, and a bunch of people from our cast, like we all went out to dinner the night of the premiere, and like everybody got sick. And just like for 3 or 4 days, like we would just hobble to screenings and like introduce the movie or like answer a question and just like go through. It was so
funny.
Oh,
it's like that.
Intense.
It's like that movie For Your Consideration.
Yes.
That's a good movie
Totally.
for people to watch to get a sense of what it is, like what it really is.
Yeah.
So to just bring this back around to your wonderful career, you continue to do nice, juicy arcs on hit TV shows like The Walking Dead and Brockmire, Grace and Frankie. There's this thing that people may also not know about where it's like oftentimes like you will go in for a project where the sides that you're reading are not part of the script at all, or the characters' names have been changed if it's anything that's related to Marvel or anything where because spoilers have become such an issue.
Yeah.
There's like a tracking number on your sides. Your name is on your side, so people know if those sides get out who is responsible for.
It's very top secret.
Very top secret. And do you have a funny story about one of those? Any I remember one for me. I remember I went in for a Die Hard movie once early on for I think it was for like a character who was dating his daughter. And maybe he gets beaten up or something, and but they called the project Rise. That's what it was called. Rise.
Wow.
It wasn't called Die Hard or anything. I was going in for something called Rise. And I think that it's great when your people say like this is Die Hard, but they don't. It's not. You don't always know. You know.
Yeah, you don't always know. I remember I went in for The Walking Dead. When I went in for that show, it was like completely fake sides, completely different character, very weird. Like I think there was maybe like you could kind of draw a parallel between what it was and what you actually ended up doing, but it was like very thought out what they do to like trick people, especially for a show like that. I mean, like The Walking Dead is like so top secret that. Well, on that show specifically, I remember I did a big arc on season 5, and I ended up, my character kills like a main character on the show.
Yeah.
And they couldn't really tell her until I don't know, like a month before. Like it was like we were on set, and I remember the actress, who was so lovely and so great, came back into the room after a big break, and she was like, upset, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she was like, "Well, I just found out that you're gonna kill me."
Oh my God! Wait a minute. You can say the name of this actor, right? This is
Emily Kinney.
Yeah, this is out there. This happened.
Yeah, this happened.
Yeah, this actually happened.
She
so she came in.
So great.
She was like, she came in, she was visibly shaken, and
she had like a little styrofoam cup with like nuts in it or something, and just came and sat down and was just like so upset, like tears were in her eyes. And I was like, what happened? And she was like, they just told me, I can't believe it, that I'm gonna die, that you're gonna shoot me and it's gonna be a thing. And I couldn't help but feel like Christine was actually gonna kill her. And I felt so bad, and I just kept being like, I'm so sorry. And I think at one point she was even like, it's not you, it's fine.
Oh my God, but a little bit it was you.
A little bit it was me.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that was like all my like weird kind of trapped in my own psyche around being the guest star and coming from the outside in and being like family. Not welcomed in. Like I really had to just handle that in that moment.
Oh my God, that's such a great story. Well, Christine, you're a wonderful person for coming in and doing this show, particularly since it's been a tumultuous couple of weeks for everybody in the country, in the world.
In the world, yeah.
Thank you so much. So thanks so much for doing it. You're awesome. I'm a big fan.
Thanks, Claude. I'm a big fan of yours too.
I want to wish you congratulations again on your engagement and continued success in addition to safety and good health.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. My conversation with Christine Woods. A big thank you again to Christine for doing it. I hope you all enjoyed it. Before we move on to our second interview today, I'm going to take another opportunity to ask you all to please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're getting your podcast from today. We've got more incredible interviews coming up with folks like Ryder Doyle, Sarah Paxton, Tembi Locke, Dahlia Malik, Vinny Chibber, and Elna Baker. Remember to subscribe to our Patreon to get all our extras with Chris Pine, Melissa Fumero, Baron Vaughn, and more. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/thingsaregoinggreatforme. If you like what you hear so far, please give us those 5-star ratings. Leave us a nice comment. We so appreciate all your ratings, reviews, and kind words, and we want to keep bringing you these great episodes. Next up is Royce Johnson. He's got some of the hottest takes around on the entertainment business. We talk about the disappearance of alternative culture, homophobia in Hollywood, and his favorite current television shows. He is an Instagram poet and one of my very best friends. Here now is me talking with the hilarious Royce Thomas Johnson. Battery looks good. We're recording. So, would you say a few more things for me just to check?
Yeah. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Now I know my ABCs. I forget. Won't you sing along with me? Maybe is that how that ends? I don't remember.
I'm so glad you did the full alphabet. I was waiting to see where you would stop. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, how are any of us doing right now?
Yeah. So you are the sharpest culture critic that I know personally.
Oh, thank you.
You have an extraordinary ability to deconstruct movies, TV, pop music. You had a popular music blog that developed a devoted following.
That's right.
What were the first things that you remember watching and listening to, and when did your critical approach first start to form? Do you remember, like from being a kid?
Oh, I was always that kid. Yeah. I mean, it was never enough for me to consume something. I had to then recreate it and present it. So if I remember watching a clip of Michael Crawford's The Phantom of the Opera coming down a staircase wearing that full like Red Death look. Yeah. I loved bad guys as a kid, so I was like, what is that? How do I do that?
Yeah.
And my parents explained like The Phantom of the Opera to me. So then I started, before I even saw it, before they took me to see it for my 5th birthday on Broadway, I would put up like little shows, my stuffed animals recreating the show. And so even though like that's not the same thing as critiquing it, it was setting my brain up for breaking something down, into a set of elements and trying to build them. And then that way I could decide like if I did a good job or a bad job recreating it. And then you could watch, it was I realize now it was my like entry point into deconstructing entertainment.
Interesting. It's so funny that like that Michael Crawford thing, I have heard that a couple of times. Yours is not the only memory of that was so formative. I have other friends who were really sort of galvanized, if I'm using that right, by Michael Crawford doing Phantom of the Opera. Yeah. Our friend Jonathan Runyon has this like a similar story, which is really fascinating. I've still never seen Phantom of the Opera, and I've talked on this podcast way too much about this, but we've talked a lot about musical theater. I've never seen it. I only saw Les Mis when I was like in college, and what's the other big one? Oh, I remember seeing Miss Saigon like my senior year of high school and being like, oh, I like this. I remember liking that one. I still haven't seen Phantom.
The Phantom is it's stupid, obviously, but there is the music itself is fantastic, and and it's so much more powerful when you see it. Like I think I rewatched it from one of those like pre-COVID, like we're gonna put this performance on YouTube for like 2 days thing that was going on for a while.
That was great. A lot of places were doing that, including the National Theatre in London was putting out some of their major shows on their YouTube channel, and I would shout them out right now. If you get a chance, go to YouTube and search the National Theatre in London and see what they've put online, because it's a really cool thing that theaters have done during this time. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, but I agree, and it's also so wild that obviously nothing touches being in the room with these people, but theater translates shockingly well to film. I remember there's a big stigma against that for a while, and since I've been watching those productions through quarantine, I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I'm there, and it's not the same thing as watching a movie. But anyway, they had the Phantom for like the 30th anniversary or whatever, and it was wonderful. It put me in the best mood.
That's great. Yeah. Now, so you.
But it is stupid though.
So you participated in a large and ongoing, what would you call it, a focus group for what would finally become Hulu.
Oh, Hulu. Yeah. It was called Studio U, and it was run by Frank Luntz, who is quite infamous now.
Are you talking about the politics guy?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that he ran it. Are you serious? For NBC and Fox, he ran this program?
Uh-huh. He ran Studio U.
Wow.
Me and him clashed a lot because without knowing anything that goes into the shit that he does, and of course since then, it's been studied rather extensively, I was able to understand he just kept presenting us with false binary options whenever he would ask us a question about, our taste or what. You could tell that he had a very specific goal in mind of where to push this room full of kids. I guess I should explain the program. It was essentially, 50. It was like 40 or 50 people from college age up to maybe 24 or 25. And NBC and Fox were trying to figure out how to create something like YouTube, because YouTube was slowly starting to erode everything away, like the way that Napster had eroded music business model. And they were like, we've got to figure this out. Like NBC had just started putting their shows online that you could watch whenever you wanted. And that was kind of radical. And in fact, they liked me very much on day one, because there was a whole ring full of creepy executives around us, like when this started, observing us. And I guess the woman whose idea that was in the room when I shouted out how brilliant that was. So they put me in the special group after that, that there was maybe 20 of us in that group. And they were trying to sort us from the casual consumers of entertainment to the aggressive, seek out the best thing to watch all the time group of people. And obviously you know me well enough to know that I would be in the latter group. So it was fascinating. And I learned so much about the business.
They offered somebody there, I think, offered you a job. Am I right, in marketing?
For FX, yeah. FX really liked me, because by the end they took the latter group to Fox, whereas originally we were being split between NBC and Fox, and they put the I don't know, the cat. I'm trying to find a word that doesn't make me sound pretentious when I talk about them. The other group into the NBC group. Yeah, but then my favorite day, like we had a rotating series of guests talk to us, and the department that I really fell in love with was FX's marketing department. And it was the first time I had ever walked away from listening to like essentially advertisers, and we're thinking of them as artists. Like they really are artists with what they do with all of their marketing materials, I think.
Yeah, they are, definitely. I worked a little bit in for Chiat Day and a couple of other advertising companies. It's a really interesting. Typically, it's a very interesting mix of consumerism and art.
Right. I mean, that's the Mad Men finale, right? Like you can't. That's why it's like such a beautiful. That's a beautiful. Spoilers. I'm gonna stay vague though. Like it basically ends on an ambiguous note. Where you really watch one of the most iconic ads of all time, and you have to wonder, like, is this art or is this purely cynical, or is it something in between? You know, like it's just when it comes to like we live in a capitalist society that you need to keep selling and buying things to keep functioning. Not one that I necessarily agree with, and people think of art as constantly, you know, the opposition to that. But I don't know what I liked about FX's presentation, why I almost came close to working for them. So I had this epiphany where I realized you kind of got to infiltrate the existing system to, you know, make the art that then slowly raises consciousness. Yeah. And and the fact that you have to be commercial is not an evil thing.
Well, look, we live in I think this, this was said on another podcast. I think it was Bill Hader said this. Like, there is no such thing as selling out anymore.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, that's what he said. I thought it was well put, because I don't think, like, you know, there's so many people now who, I mean, people are sponsoring their personal posts with their family, you know, for products on their social media profiles.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Do you think if like Kurt Cobain was alive, do you think he'd be on Twitter, for example?
Kurt Cobain's annoying. So I feel like the most pedantic. No, I feel like he would not be on Twitter. I feel like it would just be too much for him. I mean, 1992, society was too much for him, and so he, you know.
Well, that's true.
He took the exit route.
That's fair.
I don't think he could exist in 2020.
What do you consider to be selling out as defined by sort of today's standards?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
And can you name anybody who you consider has not sold out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Fiona Apple is the first person that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And this album she released this year is a monumental piece of art.
Yeah.
It's incredible, but and also it's not a gimmick with her, right? Like the world was certainly too much. The world was certainly too much for her as well, especially being a woman in that industry where you're getting massively sexualized, in an unhealthy looking way from an early point on. And so she kept taking her exits, and now she's obviously like a recluse in her Venice home, but she's not, you know, like she still loves what she does so much that it overrides, like, you know, her fear of the world. But at the same time, like, she's never going to be like, hey, I'm partnering with Instacart to like.
What did you say? Instacart?
Instacart, yeah, like buy 5 gallons of orange juice and get my bonus track.
No, you won't see Fiona Apple doing that. No, that's true. That's a fair call. She comes from that same. Well, whenever I think of that generation of folks, I think of the phrase alternative culture, which I don't think means anything anymore. I'm not sure that.
Absolutely.
Right?
No,
like,
there's no such thing.
There's no such thing anymore, right?
Well, because we're going away from our, you know, monoliths in our culture right now, where everything is being divided up into niches, and that's not an all bad. That's not even an all bad thing. But yeah, like the idea of alternative is funny to me when Billie Eilish is the #1 pop star in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, could you explain that a little bit more? I like her, and I like her music a lot, but I guess I don't know exactly what you mean.
Okay, so I actually this is perfect because it comes back to Fiona Apple. A few friends of mine had compared her to Fiona when her like first album had come out, or her first, I'm sorry, EP had come out, and I was just like, okay, I don't hear it. Like, this is offensive to Fiona. This is not it. And then I finally saw her in concert. And first of all, incredible live presence, like in my top 5 live performers I've ever seen. It was like Judy Garland vibes to this girl. It was the weirdest shit. It was like, she's the rare kind of live performer that makes you lean in to her instead of like coming to you. But then she can come to you as well. Like, she's just, the girl is fearless on stage in a way that you don't even realize other people aren't until you see the right kind of example of it in front of you. It also helped that I was surrounded by these Gen Z kids and feeling like an old fuck, but I look young. So I always feel like I look younger than I am. So I often feel like I'm undercover in these situations. They knew every word. They were expressing, like, it was her imagery is so spooky and it's bleak. But to me, what I like about her is if I were coming into the world as Gen Z, I'd be coming into a horror show. Like, as badly as millennials got fucked, we at least lived in the illusion that everything was okay and that we were going to grow up and live a better life than our parents, and the American dream was just going to keep getting exponentially better. These kids came into a world that, like, from minute one, they were like, "Oh, you mean this is all going to end?
Yeah, the party's
in 40
over.
years? Yeah, you mean this is like, you mean the global warming is happening and nobody's doing anything about it? You mean this like way of this economy is going to fall off the cliff clearly?" And like I'm sure it must have felt like being the kid in the horror movie who was trying to tell all of the adults that something was wrong with the house, and the adults just didn't believe them. So when you look at a pop star, you look at the fact that she's their biggest pop star, it makes all of the sense in the world. That is their version of Britney Spears is this girl who can take all of their fears and be, very honest about her anxiety and about her suicidal thoughts. And also the fact, what I also love about her is she covers her body. Like her whole, that sounds very like conservative dad of me. I like that girl because she covers up, but no, she's like, she refuses to be sexualized. And I just love that when she was on that stage, she was, I mean, I guess she's 18 now. She was 17 at the time. So I have to watch how I word this, but she was certainly dominating the crowd as opposed to letting you objectify her on stage, which was kind of the old model for being a pop star.
Well, so this is interesting because I had some questions lined up for you. I wanted you to sort of demonstrate a little bit of your
my thing that I do,
your cultural acumen. Yeah. And I had some other questions. One was, are you, let me see here. What was I thinking? Oh, I remember Rob Pattinson. Do you think he's going to be a good Batman?
I think he's going to be a great Batman. I think he's a hell of an actor. I think he's great. I mean, come on, The Lighthouse, he's fucking great in that. Good Time.
Yeah, he is. He's great in that movie. They both are. Yeah. I wonder about the voice. I wonder what he's going to do with his voice, because he has kind of more of a higher pitched voice, I guess, right?
I mean, whatever it is going to be better than Christian Bale's take on it. Like, those movies are great, but that Batman voice is not it, honey. Still, like watching
so
those movies back.
You're in that camp on the Christian Bale Batman.
Yeah,
voice.
and I love his performance overall.
Yeah.
In it, but it's a little much. So I certainly hope that's not what Pattinson is modeling like this off.
Yeah. What are you excited about Tenet?
No. Wow.
That's it. We don't need to go. I saw somebody tweet like that they were going to watch Tenet on their phone on purpose just out of spite.
Yeah, it's just, to me it's so rigid. I get what Nolan is doing, and I respect that he is so cinematic, and but I think the fumes kind of got to his head a bit. I mean, Inception's a perfect film for me. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, so maybe I'll watch it back now.
I tried to rewatch that one recently. I like The Prestige a lot, but I tried to rewatch Inception and had a hard time with it. But you really like it, huh?
Interesting. What was it about it that aged poorly? Or I'm assuming you enjoyed it like way back when.
I liked it a little bit more the first time I saw it. I didn't get much through it the second time around. It was partly to be quite honest, maybe I just didn't want to hear that fucking song 1,000 times.
Right. Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. For me, it's a brilliant dream.
Nothing against Edith Piaf, but that same song over and over again, like.
Right, slowed down. I just enjoyed the imagery or the symbolism, and I think it's an excellent. I think he pushes like commercial filmmaking, like something clearly designed to be a blockbuster or whatever, to its limit in terms of I'm going to make a film that can be broken down as either a metaphor of like how we live our lives or how we make art. Like I love that every character in that film can be a different job of like somebody on a set. Like you've got the writer, you've got the cinematographer, you've got like the actor, you've got like somebody broke it all down from that perspective. And I thought it was really genius. And then it becomes a story about telling stories, right? And it gets back at what we were saying earlier about art versus commerce, when you're trying to change things, where people don't like to listen to art where you walk on and wag your finger at them and tell them to stop buying stuff, for instance. But if you can plant the idea in their head and give them ownership over it as an artist, then that's everything. Like that's the goal. And so I love that metaphor in the film. That's the entire purpose of it. In terms of the literal aspects of the plot as they exist, I imagine there's a few holes there.
Sure. Okay. All right. No, that's a great. I mean, that's very poignantly put. How about what's the best TV series right now that nobody's watching?
Okay, I was about to say I May Destroy You, obviously. That nobody's watching. Tough though, because again, like everything is niche now. I was expecting Normal People to be a smash because I loved it and thought it was so revolutionary in terms of the sex scenes and the way the intimacy coordinator truly made those scenes feel like the most important scenes of development, on any episode. I just never seen sex scenes that did that, and it didn't really blow up. And I realized, like, okay, well, that ultimately had a niche. The Great as well. I guess The Great's gotten more viewers, but I would say those three shows really are my 2020. But again, people are watching them. Enough. I wouldn't say that no one's watching them. Like they all have an audience. But
what was the first one that you said? I missed it.
I May Destroy You.
I May Destroy You. It's Michaela Cole.
Yeah. Have you watched that?
I haven't watched those three shows that you just mentioned. I haven't watched them. During the pandemic, I think what has happened is Catherine said like you're reverting to things that make you feel like make you I guess like comfort food. So I'm going back through Sopranos now for the third time. I'm going back through The Wire for the second time. And then I'm watching a lot of movies right now. Could be new movies, could be old movies. That's what I've been doing a lot of. Not watching a lot of new television.
It's interesting because this is not true across the board, I'm sure. But most of my straight friends are reverting to exactly that. Like that's been their viewing pattern. And all of my faggots and I are rabid consumers of pop culture and can't turn that switch off. So we just got to keep going. We stand this, we stand that. Like we need stuff to stand all the time.
Now, I want to talk about you had a project that you put out before the shutdown. You debuted a really interesting web series called Guy. The series, it feels like a unique mix of genres, which gives it this kind of comically uneasy tone, almost, I guess, Lynchian, it felt like to me. Would you call it? Was it kind of like a celebratory fuck you to culture?
No, it's a very difficult process making that. Because I was not the writer-director, but the writer-director wrote it with me in mind. And he was watching, I think, my social media presence very closely for a while as he put it together. So when I got that, there were so many wild things in there that connected to me, but you're ultimately seeing it was a weird process as an actor because you were looking at somebody's perception of you. Like the one thing that he said that was really shocking, this guy, once he finally was directing me, and it was like, oh, you're not like this character at all, are you? And I was like, no, I'm not. And, for me, that's what made it fun. But for him, it was kind of shocking. And I think he maybe took it on as an attempt to be a fuck you to society. But, like, that's not me. That's not my perspective on fuck you is not. I mean, I've already shit on Kurt Cobain kind of in this podcast. So obviously, like, I'm not
you have shit on a few things. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Yeah. But
so long as it's not me doing it.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, obviously I respect like the craftsmanship of somebody like Cobain, but in terms of the deification of the rebels, man, who fucking like destroyed themselves for us. Like, it's not, the martyrdom is not my thing. I think fuck you society goes hand in hand with martyrdom.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I escaped from the Catholic Church. I don't need to deify any more martyrs. Like, that's not
right.
It's not a fun practice. Like, we're on this planet, God knows why, but we might as well like try to make things better and have fun at the same time. Like, it's not you and you can't really do that if everything is fuck you. So this movie, I guess, that's a long way of me saying it doesn't represent my point of view.
So it was intended originally as a film, and then it became cut up into pieces, and you so it's sort of it's either a film or it's a web series.
I truly have no idea what he's doing with it. To be honest,
liked it as a web series. I thought it worked very nicely that way.
I do too. I think he was trying to do film festivals, and it works very well. In my opinion, it worked better as a feature, but I know the majority opinion of people who've seen it prefer it cut up into pieces. For me, it's just like, it's a really wild ride where if you watch the first 15 minutes, that's nothing like the, fourth slice of 15 minutes in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Where can people find that now?
I truly don't know. He will reappear out of nowhere. And I think by the time this is up, you will be able to see it on some form. I think he's going to sell it to somebody now because of the pandemic. People just need content, right? So I think he's using this opportunity to say, like, okay, I'm gonna look for a good digital buyer. If you follow it at Guy the Film, that is where it is. It's Lynchian. But it's adapted, I think, for influencer culture. It's just. I don't want to say too much about it because the less expectations you have going in, the more what the fuck you're gonna feel.
Yeah.
Every step of the way. It keeps changing shape, and that aspect is interesting.
I thought it was great. So at Guy the Film, is that on Instagram?
It is, yes. Sorry, yes, Instagram.
Now, I know you've been doing a lot of writing during this pandemic. I've asked a couple people this. I'm curious what you think is going to be the future of entertainment during and maybe post the pandemic.
Well, Zoom comedy shows suck. Have you
watched any? I'm about to do a few, actually.
I've performed in a few, and I've had fun doing it. But would I want to watch it? I don't think so.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've watched one. Yeah,
it's just, I mean, like there can be a correct way to do it. It's just not like my favorite thing that I made was a short film that was just using Zoom backgrounds. Like it's for me going from one place to another. I essentially made like a 4-minute silent movie with it, and that's fun, but that's not live. But as far as I think we're going to remember this moment of when we were forced to create things like this, and I think there will be tricks and angles of learning that we've picked up that we don't know we've picked up yet until theoretically the business returns to normal and we start adapting the aesthetic, the Zoom aesthetic, all of that a little bit more to this.
Okay. Yeah. I think I read there was like there's a comedy show. I think it's Jenny Yang is doing a comedy show via Animal Crossing.
Oh God.
Which it's supposed to be great. I need to sign up for an animal, or I guess you can watch it on Twitch. But I'm not doing animal. I don't have any with kids. Again, it's like I have no time to be. I know
You hit Claude.
a lot of people
Claude,
are watching television. A lot of people are watching or like playing video games. I'm not playing video games.
You have 8 million better things to do with your life, trust me, than Animal Crossing. Don't worry about that.
Okay, good. That's good to have that confirmed.
Yeah, it's for losers.
Jesus, you're really not sparing anybody with the rod today.
I guess I'm joking. I'm joking about that. I'm just yes. That is more of it. I actually just have no interest in it. There's no conflict. There's no nothing. It's not for me, and I'm sick of seeing it in everybody's Twitter. But yes, anybody who enjoys it, I'm genuinely happy that you have found some joy in this world.
I'm going to pair this interview up with the most famous person that I have on this whole thing, just so that everybody can hear your scalding hot takes. So I did want to ask you, I went to your birthday party this past winter, and my God, it was filled with at least half of all the important LA thought leaders. You're friends with a lot of important critical thinkers. Are you? When are you going to do your podcast?
I don't have a format for it. I think you need a format for it. I think that your format is fun and it's distinct, and I could explain it to somebody in an elevator pitch, and I don't have that for myself yet. And being a gay who has critical thoughts, like it's kind of like there's saturation for that out there. Like that's just what I'm doing. But it's I don't know if a podcast is my medium necessarily. But
we'll find out after this, right?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, people are gonna love me.
I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
I do. That wasn't meant to. I mean, we're probably close to the end here, but that wasn't supposed to be the end. Let me see if there's anything. Really so I did want to ask you a little bit about. So you're on a house team over at the Pack Theater.
I am, yeah. Well, yes, theoretically, when that exists again.
When that exists again, yeah, it still exists. They did a big sort of charity fundraiser I saw for the theater. It's got a lot of heart. They're sort of the new kid on the block of the improv schools in LA. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose the Pack over the other comedy schools in LA? I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, they're pretty much the only kid left on the block at this point somehow. But for me, I came into LA, well, to give everybody some background, this is a much bigger story, but I came to Los Angeles thinking I was straight, learned that I was not. But my realization of that came as I was making some waves at UCB. I wasn't crushing it, performing there, 3 times a week, but I was on stage a decent amount and making all the right friends at UCB when I first came in. And I was inspired by what I was watching. I was inspired by the people who I was with. Many of them blew up and became very successful. And I had a mental breakdown because all of a sudden I didn't know who I was when I went into any room. I didn't know when you realize you suddenly don't know who you are. You've got to sit with all of those my God, I've been lying to everyone, and what are they going to think of me now? And I'm such a fraud, and I'm done. That's the end of me. But also you don't know I don't know what my perspective on the world is anymore. So I don't know how to write a comedy sketch that's making fun of, things that I see that you don't, cause I don't know what I see anymore. So and then also the culture there, all of a sudden it truly went from when you think you're a straight white man, and then suddenly, obviously I'm still a white man. So things are, there's little to complain about in the world for me, but learning you're gay, it is your first hint at all of a sudden you're teleported to outside the dinner party looking in. And it's very frustrating to be in an environment like UCB a few years ago, surrounded by a lot of guys, a lot of straight white men who were maybe picked on in high school or whatever. So they think they're incapable.
Here is the tea. Here, let's have it.
So they're incapable, but they still think of themselves as the protagonist, no matter what, right? They're incapable of being fratty douchebags because the fratty douchebags beat them up when that's not human behavior. Human behavior is hurt people. So you have all of these scenes that are just so fucking fratty, and the running joke for so much of the vibe then was 2 straight guys who are acting gay or kind of gay or whatever, which is not offensive. It's just boring,
totally.
My example that I always use to people, because I truly think this defines an entire mini generation, of comics is the Judd Apatow, you know how I know you're gay, you know how I know you're gay, you know how I know you're gay thing from Knocked Up, which
That's
is
the
not
one that I was thinking of. Yeah.
It's not a homophobic joke. Like, it's not. It's just okay. Like, they're doing stuff that's like, it's that thing where you realize like the comic minds behind it. You see their limitations with themselves. Where like where if they're flirting with behavior that is not acceptable, then that's funny. If I'm gonna do this thing, if I'm gonna behave this way, then that means that I fuck men. You know, which like I just know that that's not how life works. You know, it's not interesting. It's like it's basic. I'm struggling with the exact words to give it, but it's more like a sense of basicness, profound basicness. But then that can also feel like it's strangling you when you're surrounded by it everywhere, because then people get weirded out by your perspective on the world. As somebody who's like, you know, had group sex and, you know, like been to very insane parties surrounded by, you know, everybody who's like people that are like people who look and act insane by like straight cis Idaho standards or whatever. Like, it's weird for me to see that much
Geez, you really threw Idaho under the bus there.
Well, it's my go-to, yeah. But anyway,
poor
so
Idaho's just standing there doing fucking nothing.
All of this is very far from your question, but like I'll bring it back and say that once I figured my shit out and stopped having mental breakdowns, got my meditation in order, got my therapy in order, got my ADHD medication in order, I was deciding it was time to jump back in, because I just know that for me, whatever place is out for me in the industry is going to come from me creating my own opportunities. And the Los Angeles comedy scene is just like right there for you. It'd be great if we had a theater scene in LA that like, you know, was easy to get people who could give you big, money opportunities would go and attend, but they just don't, but they will come out to comedy. So I was like, all right, I really charted a 4-year plan for myself to ultimately produce a showcase and say like, this is what I've learned. This is who I am. And I started at the Pack because it was less intimidating for me to jump back into, quite frankly. And I also had just heard really great things about the level 1 sketch class. And it truly is, I think, the best comedy class I've ever taken. It changed the way that I thought about comedy. And what I loved about it is it's not like this groundling style, which I've done and has its merits, or even UCB style of teaching. The PAC's emphasis is giving you the tools to make your own rules for your writing, but make sure it's funny, you know, as opposed to there's no orthodoxy to how they run their classes there. And the downside of that is it's a little punk rock, it's a little sloppy. It can get real, you know, lowest common denominator on that stage sometimes. But I've also seen some of the most brilliant stuff I've ever seen on stage in Los Angeles there. Like, it's a really fun, chaotic energy. And when I went back to take classes at UCB again, it was so bizarre to me because like it was a completely different environment. It was antiseptic. It was like I wasn't even allowed to, you can't say straight man in your scene anymore. For instance, you have to say the voice of reason. And
I didn't know that's an interesting. Okay, yeah,
it's
new vocabulary.
Yeah, and it's like I get it, but it feels like if they, you know, were driving off the left side of the road when I was there before with the fratty bro thing, this culture change happened, and then they've overcorrected to the other side in a way that feels inauthentic. And I just didn't have fun there. There was like a lot of anxiety. You could tell it was a machine. The love was really gone from that place, which I think is evident in their, you know, destruction right now. I think this has been a long time coming, quite frankly. But yeah, I give me chaotic energy over like a cynical machine any day. That's why I'm still at the Pack.
Cool. So let me ask, so where can people find you online?
I'm finally back on Twitter. Many of my best friends now are very good at the Twitter thing and have been telling me to jump back on for a while. And it's been intimidating because I'm like, who am I? And then I have to remember like, oh, right, Twitter's just a place where you splat your thoughts. You don't have to judge them. So I'm on Twitter as Royce Johnson. which I'm sure you can see the correct spelling in the name of the episode. And then I'm on Instagram, which is my preferred medium, at Royce Looks At Stuff.
Yes, you are fantastic to follow on both, particularly
thank you.
Instagram. You are. The
I
things
like
you
that
post
it's
on
a
Instagram are you. I think I was like for a while I was considering you like an Instagram poet.
How so?
You would say these profoundly funny but sort of vague but also very specific things at the same time. Much like poetry. Poetry feels vague, but it's actually all very specific, I guess.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I just went through and deleted a bunch of my stuff from like 2016. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely deleted my Gays for Trump post because I was like, the joke doesn't read anymore.
Well, I loved you did this. I guess this is whatever this was. This is something fun. I think more people should be doing. You did a lip sync contest. Is that what it was?
Oh yeah.
This is like the most. It was one of the most cathartic videos I've watched during this pandemic from a friend. Posting stuff or anything using the sort of the template of the Groundhog Day. The Sonny and Cher song, "You're Lying in Bed," and then folks should go and check that out because I felt that was thrilling.
Yeah, that was my performance of "Anthems" by Miss Charlie XCX,
right.
who I'm a huge fan of. Yeah, and I won. I won my contest. I'm doing another one. My next one is going to be absolutely too much and insane. I might get in trouble for it, but isn't that why we do these things?
Not me. I'm trying not to get in trouble at all. Thank you so much for doing this. I love you, man.
I was gulping water. I love you too. I think you're brilliant. I always have, and I think you're really good at this too. Not to like judge it as it's happening, but you're talented in so many ways, and I'm happy to discover this is a brand new one.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. All right, dude. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
All right, bye. To everyone out there, if you listened all the way to the end of this 7th episode, I cannot believe it. I'm just it means so much to me. Thank you so much for listening. Give us a subscribe and those sweet high-star ratings, a nice comment, and we'll return the favor by bringing you even more quality content in the future. Stay tuned, because we've got just 3 more incredible episodes, including interviews with Ryder Doyle, Sarah Paxton, Tembi Locke, Dahlia Malik, Vinnie Chibber, and Elna Baker, to name more than a few. Our sound engineer is Christopher Frontiero, and our series composer is Cormac Bluestone. Our series graphics editor is Dan Olszewski. I'm excited right now because we did good enough on this first season that I am pretty sure at this point that we will have a second season. So I want to say thank you again to everybody who is listening. I am having a lot of fun doing this series, as I know Winston is as well. We want to thank our guests from the bottom of our hearts for coming on and doing this show with us. Stay tuned, folks.